See how it's counting up right there?
All right, here we go. This is chapter 3, section 6, solving quadratics using square roots. When appropriate, this is an easier method. I'm going to show you kind of some background and give you some information. Once again, this is chapter 3, section 6. Before the break, if I had a problem and it looked like this, x squared equals 121, right? You were taught in your process was to set it equal to 0. So you would subtract over the 121 and set it equal to 0. Then, because you had a perfect square and a perfect square, you could factor it, right? This is the difference of perfect squares. What does it factor into? X and x plus and minus 11 and 11, right? Isn't that the difference of perfect squares? Doesn't it break up into x plus 11 and x minus 11? Then you would solve both of those, and what would you get? X equals what? Plus or minus 11. From now on, I'm going to write plus or minus 11. It means the same thing. Positive 11, negative 11. So, this is how we were taught to do this. Okay, set it equal to 0, factor, and solve. Well, what if it doesn't factor? Okay, that's a question we're going to ponder in a second. But, is there another way to do this problem using square roots that may be faster or easier? So here we go. X squared is equal to 121. We notice that we have x squared by itself equal to a number. So if I square root both sides, I square root the left and I square root the right, the square and the square root cancel out and I just get x on the left. What's the square root of 121? 11. Did I get the same answer? No, I got half of it. Right over here, I got positive and negative 11. What did I get over here? Just positive 11. So how could I make this scenario, how could I make this procedure work? No. What could I add to the 11? Plus or minus. So what you need to write in your notes is when you square root both sides of an equation, when you square root both sides of an equation, you write this down so you remember it. This is the number one reason people miss these problems. When you square root both sides of an equation, you must add what? Plus or minus. Let's check that, right? Let's see if that rule holds water. Does it work? 11 squared is what? 121. Negative 11 squared is also 121. So both the positive and the negative scenarios work. Okay? Just as they did over here when we solved it like this. Okay? If we were to graph it, where would the intercepts be? Positive 11 and negative 11. Those are the intercepts. Remember, this is intercept form. Okay? So it works. What would your answer be here?
X equals plus or minus 4.
Plus or minus 4. Right? You see how easy that was? You square root both sides, you add the plus or minus, piece of cake. How about this one? 72 is not a perfect square. But x squared is not by itself. What do I need to do first? I need to get the x squared by itself by dividing by 2. So I divide both sides by 2 and I get x squared equals 36. Now what does x equal?
Plus or minus 6.
Plus or minus 6. So these problems are so easy, you could do them in your head. Isn't that a lot easier than factoring?
Yes.
Now, what's been true about all these problems? They're perfect squares. The whole reason we have this scenario, I'm going to go ahead and erase this side. The whole reason we have this scenario, or this reason, is what if it's not a perfect square? What if I have x squared is equal to 8? 8's not a perfect square. If I moved it over and tried to factor, it wouldn't work. Well, I do everything exactly the same. I square root the left and square root the right. Squareds cancel out, so I get x equals plus or minus root 8. But I know, because of what we did earlier, I know that I'm not going to leave root 8 as root 8, right? 8 has what? What does it break down into?
4 and
2, 2, and 2, I think. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So x equals plus or minus 2 root 2. And that's your final answer. I don't want a decimal. I want it in exact form. meaning I want the radical simplified. Okay, questions? Any questions? The rest of these are a variation of that. Everything else, that's the main concept for today. Everything else is just a variation of that concept. Let's look at another problem. Say now I've tacked on some more stuff to the x squared. Some more stuff you have to do prior to taking the square root. Amber, what do you think I'm going to do first? Add what? Add 4. Exactly right. Good job. Add 4 here. Add 4 here. 1/2 x squared is equal to 14. Okay? Connor, what am I going to do now? How do I get rid of 1/2? You can divide both sides, but really you should, anytime you have a fraction, you're right, but anytime you have a fraction, your rule should really be to multiply by the what? Reciprocal. Reciprocal, right? He's right, you can divide both sides by 1/2, but that's the same as multiplying both sides by 2/1. See, Connor, when I multiply by the reciprocal, all that stuff cancels out. So now I'm sitting on x squared equals 28. Now what can I do? I've done all that work to do what? Square root both sides. And what do I have to remember to do when I square root both sides? Plus or minus. I cannot forget the plus or minus. Because if I forget, I only get half the answer. Square root, x equals plus or minus 2 root 7. Is that right?
Yeah.
How nice is it with those calculators? Right? The only part that you do on the calculator is this part. Right? But it still will simplify that part for you. Okay? The new calculators. Questions? Any questions? All right, let's look at another way to make. Anybody got a question? 2 root 7. I broke down 28 into 4 and 7, which is 2, 2, and 7. All right, let's try another. How else can they make it a little harder? All right. Let's try this one. Yeah. What's my time?
7 minutes.
Okay. Reed, can you see it from there? Brantley, can you see it? Can you tell me when it's getting close to 10? Just keep an eye on it.
If I say it like this, I can't.
It's almost at 8. Okay. Just let me know. All right? I'll probably do this problem and stuff. All right, so here we go. What's different about this problem? What do you notice right off the bat?
Parentheses.
Well, you got some parentheses, and it's this stuff squared is equal to 100. So my question is, do I add 4 to both sides like I did over here, or do I go ahead and square root both sides? Which one do I do? Is the stuff squared by itself? See, this stuff here, this might as well be this. It's the same thing, right? We've got the stuff squared by itself. So I heard a bunch of you say it. You square root both sides. Square root the left, square root the right. The square root and the square cancel out, and I get x minus 4. Over here, what do I get? Not 10.
Plus or minus 10.
You better get plus or minus 10. You better get plus or minus 10. Don't forget plus or minus. Now what do we have to do to solve? What do we got? One more step.
Add 4.
Add 4. Then what do you get?
X equals plus or minus 14.
All right, Adam said 14. Is that all of the answer? 14's half the answer. What's the other answer? Negative 6. Where did negative 6 come from?
Negative 10 plus 4.
That's right. Okay, so don't mess that up. Right? You got to do the 4 plus the 10, and then the 4 minus the 10 to get your 2 different answers. Okay, are we there?
I think so.
I'll stop. That's okay. I'll stop here. I don't want to risk it.